Hello and welcome to part 3 of my Crooked Moon campaign guide. Let's continue where we left off. Karak 8 Peaks itself, as well as the towns that are part of its province, produce far more gold than your other cities, giving you a major economic boost once you conquer them. You also lose your -2 obedience penalty in all your cities for not owning Karak 8 Peaks. However, the biggest bonus comes from building the unique structure chain in Karak 8 Peaks, which starts with deep passageways. If you fully build out this building chain, you get the following massive bonuses faction-wide. All your units get 50 experience points per turn, regardless of whether or not they did anything. All your goblins in all your armies get plus 20 leadership, making them actually good at holding down the line. All new lords you recruit automatically start at level 4, and all goblins and night goblins you recruit from then on start with 4 veterancy ranks. It takes 30 turns and 30,000 gold to build out this building chain, but the massive benefits ensure your dominance for the remainder of the game. This building chain also lets you recruit orc units, which completes your greenskin roster and lets you make good use of goblin great shamans and orc warboss lords. Once you take Karak 8 Peaks, there's a good chance the mutinous Crooked Moon Gits will have holdings elsewhere that they took on their way to you. Take these holdings and wipe out the treasonous curs. However, be warned. Do not subjugate the mutinous Gits. At the time when I wrote this guide, there was a bug in the game where if you subjugate the mutinous Gits, they cease all action. Their armies and agents will just stand around doing nothing because literally the only thing they are meant to do is get in your way. Worse, due to another bug, you cannot release the mutinous moon Gits from subjugation, which effectively makes them unattackable and makes it impossible to win the campaign, since destroying the mutinous Gits is a prerequisite of winning the campaign for the Crooked Moon. Now, you're probably looking at the Badlands and the mountains north of it, and chances are it's all going to belong to one faction or another. If you're lucky, that'll be Grimgor. Once Grimgor is that powerful, he's not gonna care for getting confederated by you, simply because he sees himself as much stronger and thus won't just let you take over. In that case, here's a simple trick I used. The AI tends to move all its armies around in a loose formation. Just gather all your armies in the spot where Grimgor has all of his, then attack his armies and wipe them out. By now you should have a strong enough economy to support at least 4 armies, so you should easily be able to take out 2 or 3 of Grimgor's armies, if not more. These early successes will lower Grimgor's fightiness, but increase your own until your armies start walking, while his will start suffering attrition, resulting in a downward cascade that will ensure you will break up all of Grimgor's armies. Once that's done, start conquering his cities until he sues for peace. At that point you can confederate him, and voila, you now own about half of the entire map. If instead the Dwarven realms ended up being your adversary, be prepared for a long and bloody war across the east. The dwarves won't surrender, unlike the greenskins, so be prepared for that. However, with Karak 8 Peaks in your possession, you should not have any issues dealing with the dwarves. It will just take some time. Once you've conquered all of the Badlands and the Southern Mountains, there's one last place to go. The Empire. Go fight them, raze every city, destroy every army. You will then have won the campaign. Congratulations for beating one of the hardest campaigns in the game. If you liked this tutorial series, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like to see me produce more content, please visit my Patreon. Every bit of support helps me create more and better content. There will be one more optional video in this tutorial series, and for those of you who still struggle with the campaign, here are a few tips. Moving armies through the Underway lets you ignore human territories almost entirely by skipping from one mountain range to the other. You can also use this as a way to attack nearby human settlements by hopping back and forth over mountain ranges. Goblin big bosses are your best agents on the campaign map, being able to block the movement of enemy armies and doing incredibly well as assassins. I recommend using shaman heroes in your armies. They're not as strong in direct combat as a big boss is, but their spells can turn entire battles around. Goblin shamans are notably better than the orc shamans for the Crooked Moons, as the big wag lore used by orc shamans is centered around damage spells and buffing, while the little wag is centered mainly on debuffing, which makes the little wag superior to the big wag in an all goblin army, because goblins don't have that high of a stat line to begin with, which means that they benefit less from buffs than they do from debuffs on the enemy. Night Goblin war bosses are your best lore type for any of your armies, due to the large buffs they can give to goblins in their skill tree. As such, try to focus on their middle skill tree. This by and far gives you the best results in combat, as they'll buff almost your entire army. Goblin Great Shamans and Orc War Bosses can also buff goblins in the same way, but these buffs are not nearly as large as the buffs Night Goblin War Bosses give. Once you unlock the ability to recruit Orcs, Goblin Great Shamans and Orc War Bosses become a much more viable Lord type. The Drippin' Tips skill from the Night Goblin Warboss skill tree is only worth it if you run an army that has virtually no units in it that have poison attacks. As the Crooked Moon roster is full of units that already have poison, like Night Goblins, Spider Riders and Squig Hoppers, and since poison doesn't stack, I really don't recommend taking that skill. Skarsnik only gets one legendary quest for his legendary weapon, and while it is a pretty damn good legendary weapon, it suffers for the fact that Skarsnik has to march across the entire map, literally, to do the final step in the quest. You probably won't be able to do that before you've already crushed most of your opposition, at which point you'll no longer really need the benefits of that special weapon. Avoid conquering or settling the giant home mountain range to the north. This is a province consisting of 3 dwarf holds that usually get wiped out by chaos. But it's not usually worth settling or conquering these holds because the place constantly gets attacked by the Varg and the Scaling, and when chaos invades, they'll be the first of the places that get hit by the chaos invasion, even before any of the human factions. And since this province is not a victory objective to you, I highly recommend just avoiding it entirely. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this guide informative.